This has been like WebEx meeting marathon day today for
Gosh.
me.
Oh, yeah.
Um,
So you really think the campus is going to be back to like this level next fall and we're not going to regress?
I mean, I have no idea. Let's hope. I think the campus is committed to being in person as much as to
Oh,
going to
okay.
2019.
Right.
You know,
Right.
but I'm sure we will have an irreversible inching towards more online offerings as a
Right.
result of the last 2 years. But
Right.
I'll actually, I last meeting we had lots and lots of democratic sharing of announcements and stuff
Oh, yeah.
from the officers. This is going to be like the opposite because
Yeah, I see.
I'm going to take us through a couple of kind of
Okay.
important things going on. Um, and
And maybe I'll remind people about HCIR.
That's fine. Yeah, it's not too late. That's right. Hello, Sapa.
Oh, my hair's all like caked because it's wet. That's rare. We got slammed in the city. I don't know what it's like out there. I didn't come in today because it's like whiteout conditions here.
Yeah, it's we've had a lot of snow out here too. Well, hey everybody, and welcome back. We'll wait a
Everybody.
few minutes for people to trickle in. Kind of have some. I was looking forward to just doing some. Let's talk about exciting cases in
Yeah, it's gonna be
school
ethics bowl.
cases. Yeah, but Safa, who is our one of our ethics bowlers, I
Yes.
don't think has seen these cases because
Oh,
these are national cases. I don't know if they looked at them. So these hopefully would be kind of fun to just talk about.
cool.
Um, but we got some other things that we need to do as well today.
Mhm.
Um, um, I'm gonna I'll wait a minute or two here for people to come in, but I'll say this again in a second for people to come in. So I'm not exactly sure how to proceed, but so in the past, before Tunisia and I entered the 21st century, which was only 2 years ago, um,
I'm
we never
almost
ran.
there.
That's right. We never ran elections so that you could vote ahead of the meeting. We just
Right.
had elections at the meeting themselves. And the reason I'm telling you this is that we have a sort of a quirk
Yeah.
involving the fact that many of you have already voted in the election this year,
Yes.
which is that one of the candidates has withdrawn
Oh,
from one of the positions. And so we kind of have to figure out how to proceed in light of that because we also had another candidate who was running for two positions. So if you decided like, oh, I'm going to vote for not so Varshita ran for both positions, and imagine that you decide, well, I won't vote for Varshita for the first position, but I will for the second. But then you decide, well, Emily is no longer running for the social media position. So you say, well, now I want to vote for Varshita for the social media, but then I won't, you know what I mean? So we're going to figure it all out and it's going to all grow
we
up.
are.
It'll be all
Nice.
good. But I just put an updated announcement on Blackboard and I want to show you all some stuff on Blackboard and then we'll get started and have lots of fun. Um, and we have enough people now that I think it's okay to get started. I will record. I don't know that I did that last week, or maybe I did, but I haven't posted it. So I will go and find that recording and post it. Okay. So the first like 3 minutes or so of today is going to be a little boring because it's going to be total just logistical stuff. But I went in and I cleaned up some of the Blackboard stuff. And if whoever wins this communications officer position, it'll be your job to further clean it up. But I cleaned it up a little bit so at least the view that you all as students can see, it's going to be a lot easier to navigate. So I wanted to show it to you now. And so let me share my screen with you. All right. So there used to be like a ton over here on the left, and a lot of it was just linking to outdated info. Like you don't need the fall 21 classes anymore. You don't need a bunch of dead links to things that aren't there anymore. So we cleaned all that stuff up. And I wanted to show you that I moved a couple of announcements over to campus opportunities. So first, just a reminder, if you didn't see these pop up when we first posted the announcements, but if you're back next year, um, we often have had students volunteer for the TAP autism mentoring program. And so they're recruiting for next year. So the 2022-23 season. And so you can mentor and assist so these will be first year students coming in next year. You'll mentor the students who are on the autism spectrum and help them transition to Harper College. We've had many students over the years on the autism spectrum in the honors program. So certainly encourage you to take advantage of that. If you're interested, there's the link right there. And then the Harper Buddy system is not mentor mentee, it's peer to peer, right? But notice that's they want you to submit that by the end of the day, Friday. So if you're interested in doing that, there's a form to submit your interest, and then you can go to these resources to find out more if you're interested. But I know last year and the year before, a lot of students were like, it kind of sucks. I don't really know anybody. This would just be a way to get to know people. But in any event, these were up in announcements and now they're not. Now they're up in campus opportunities. So we are going to post things like that in campus opportunities going forward, so that you know that. The other thing I wanted to show you all is the scholarship info. I went in and I just try to highlight just the things that are kind of coming up so you weren't overwhelmed with information. So all of these two folders are scholarship opportunities that are this spring for next fall. And there'll be some others that we will post later in the semester, but these are some ones we wanted to make sure you're aware of right now, especially because deadlines are March 1st for these. So the first is, there's three in this folder. The first one you might have heard us talk about before, but the Elmhurst Scholarship. So on March 4th, Friday, March 4th, Professor Tamajian is going to be taking a group of students. We'll have room for about 12 students to go if you're interested, to Elmhurst on a campus visit. You do not need to go on that campus visit to apply for the Elmhurst Scholarship. But if you're thinking of transferring to Elmhurst for the fall, you need to apply to Elmhurst, but also you could be eligible to receive a full tuition scholarship, but you apply through us for the scholarship. You're not applying through Elmhurst for that. And so we've got some application questions here. We do want you to have a Harper faculty member write you a letter. And it says, ideally, it wouldn't be either one of us that you're asking, since we'd essentially be nominating you to us. So we already know you and we can say nice, wonderful things about you already. So it'd be great if you find someone else. It does not have to be an honors professor, but that would be great. And what we do is we sort of look, this is just somebody who's been pretty involved in the honors program. So we won't necessarily ask you to, list all of the honors classes you've taken, but we're going to look all that up. So, that kind of thing. So if you have any questions, just let us know, but you need to apply to us by March 1st, including your letter, even though you have until March 15th to actually apply to Elmhurst. So just kind of be aware of those two deadlines. The other thing is that every year, Georgetown University allows us to nominate usually up to 2 people who are highly interested in going to Georgetown. This is not a scholarship, but what it does is moves you to the top of the pile. So if we nominate you, you are highly likely, but not guaranteed, to be accepted into Georgetown. Georgetown does pledge to meet the financial needs of all eligible students. That doesn't mean they pay for everything. And that's kind of important, is they might say, see, like between this loan and this amount of money out of pocket and these scholarships, we've met your needs.
Right.
But we have sent many students over the years to Harper College, and they They were not all kids with mansions and trust funds and stuff like that. So Georgetown is an expensive school, but it can be more within reach financially than you might think. So if you are highly interested in Georgetown, make sure you let us know that. Some years we've only had two people, and then we don't make you do some of the other stuff like a letter of recommendation. And but we are going to, well, I should say this, we may not need those other things, but we're going to ask you to do the four things no matter what. So first of all, apply to Georgetown. Second of all, give us a heads up. Just send us an email that says, "Hey, Professor Garcia, Professor Summation, I'm really excited about Georgetown." And then we just want a 2-page essay about why you want to go to Georgetown and why you think you would not suck there. And then also a letter of recommendation. You could use the same letter if you were doing both Elmhurst and Georgetown. But again, ideally it wouldn't come from us. However, in this case, we will actually be sending a letter of nomination, which is like a letter of recommendation for you if we nominate you. And so what's nice about you having a letter from someone else is we can incorporate some of that into our letter of nomination and say, oh, Professor Wilson says these lovely things about Adriana. And so that kind of
It
stuff.
would be nice if we knew not only, I'm sorry, I just want to jump over it, about like we do know about you academically and everything, but also we are looking for people who um, are genuinely interested in Georgetown,
Yeah.
right? To a certain extent, like that does help. So if you know some things about the school, or maybe you really want to go to school in DC because you want those kinds of opportunities, like internship opportunities, that's a good thing to let us know.
Yeah, and if you don't know if you're interested in Georgetown because you don't know that much about it, feel free to talk to us. It's sort of a joke that like I seek my vengeance upon Georgetown by recommending you all to them because I applied to only 3 colleges.
Oh, I didn't know that they
Yeah.
turned you down, huh?
Yes, and in fact, when I went on the visit to Georgetown, like the campus visit, about 10 minutes in, I was like, I am nowhere near qualified to be going to Georgetown. Um, so I applied to 3 places. I got into 2 and got turned down from Georgetown. And so now I sign all of your letters of a recommendation. Dr. John Garcia, F you. No, I don't do that. Um, So, but just we do know a little bit about Georgetown and all that stuff. So let us know if you're interested or maybe interested. And then the third one, and we get a lot of scholarship notices from schools all over the country that come because of Phi Theta Kappa. And I'm sure if you're in Phi Theta Kappa, you're going to get some of these things directly sent to you. We can't post them all. We'll try to get in the habit of posting more of them. But this one is Boston University is a pretty prestigious university. It's also very expensive. So $25,000 scholarship is no small cut of cheese. But that you
Season
apply
ticker.
directly to them. Um, um, no, that's not true. We nominate you. But that's also March 1st deadline. Okay. So just be aware of that. We have had past students in the Harper Honors Program win that, even though that's a national scholarship competition. So it's you're only competing against 8 or 9 other people for Elmhurst maybe, or 15, 16 other people because it's just the Harper Honors Program. But it's you never know if you can get this. And so sometimes students put all their eggs in the Jack Kent Cook basket, but there's lots of other things you can apply for. So just want to let you know about those in terms of things coming up. And then some other things. These are info we got from other schools. There's a dual degree program in scholarship with Governor's State, which is a little bit south, but just about an hour from Harper. But you can win a pretty extensive scholarship from Governor's State right here in Illinois. There's a full tuition scholarship at Millikan University. And these are all scholarships that like the school told us about within the last few years. And we just have it up there, but they haven't like communicated with us every year. So it may or may not still be there. Concordia College is right in Forest Park, which is sort of right on the edge of the city. And Carthage College also has one. So you see that we say like Concordia is a brand new full ride scholarship. That's 2018. So it's not so brand new anymore, but we think they still have it. Okie doke.
Can I mention two more? Um, one just to look out, two that are local, but they are, national competition. But how national is it, or is it local? UIC, I believe, still has a competitive Phi Theta Kappa scholarship that's a full semester of tuition. Like that's how you get. It's not renewable, but you get one whole semester of free tuition. And Northeastern Illinois University still has. I'm pretty sure last year somebody applied to it, a full ride Phi Theta Kappa, that's full tuition, Phi Theta Kappa scholarship, competitive with all Phi Theta Kappans coming in. So those are two big local ones where you can get a really nice chunk of money. They're competitive, but we have had students win the UIC one. I don't know if we've ever had anybody do the Northeastern Illinois one. I don't think so. But
and I would have included the Northeastern info, except the website link, if you go to it, is to 2014.
yeah.
It's their website. So I'm a little concerned that perhaps that's not a viable scholarship anymore.
I feel like I asked last year and it was, but I couldn't find their website's tough. And like I feel like I asked about it and they're like, yeah, it's still here, but I couldn't. It is hard to navigate. So, but I'll check again on that. But it used to be there. Yeah.
All right. So groovy. So just want to make sure you all were aware of that stuff. So put it on your caps for scholarship deadlines. A lot of stuff going on in the month of February. And also, we haven't planned this yet, but we did this in the fall. We are happy to run the scholarship, the workshops that we did in the fall again in the spring if people want. We usually do a
Asian Palooza.
Asian Palooza sort of essay writing workshop, and then often I do something on finding transfer schools. Usually that's more popular in the fall, but we can put out a survey or something to see if you guys are interested in doing it in the spring as well. Cool. All right, the next bureaucratic thing we need to do is the election stuff. So do me a favor.
Can I just remind people also just quickly, if you are interested in HCIR Honors Council of the Illinois Region Student Symposium, proposals are due on the 12th. You can meet with me to go over them. Also, the proposals are just an abstract, but then there's this option to put in like a 250 to 500 word essay about your project on the 12th. Not the whole project, but just that essay. And there are cash prizes, right? So somebody's going to win a first place prize for $250 for both the poster and the talk competition. So I just want to remind you about that. If you're interested, get in touch with me.
Awesome. Okie doke. Okay, so I don't know how many of the people running for officer are here. I don't see many of them. So here's what I would like you to do first. Please raise your digital hand if you have already voted for an officer, the officer positions. Okay, good. So that means a lot of you have yet to vote. So what we'd like to do is have the rest of you vote. And if you already voted, but you voted for Emily for social media coordinator, and Emily, I feel like I'm sort of accidentally shaming you here. Let me just explain. Like, it's actually a super responsible thing to do, which is that Emily decided that maybe it would be hard to commit to being at all the meetings that might be required in terms of the weekly Wednesday meetings. So she didn't want to, commit to being an officer and then not be able to carry out her duties. So she decided to withdraw. So it's responsible to do that ahead of time. So thank you. Okay, you can put your hands down now. So if you voted for Emily, you can just go in and re-vote for that position. So what I did originally in the form is it required you to fill out both questions. I disabled that, so you can vote for just the first position again if you want to. So I took her name off of that ballot, if that makes sense. Okay. And so we have to sort of discard the votes that were for Emily. And so that we have two officers running for social media coordinator, Varshita, who I don't see here, and Faith. And so you'll have an opportunity to vote for either one of them if you haven't voted yet, or if you did vote, but you voted for Emily. And then we have several people running for the the other one. What am I trying to say? The communications officer, Blackboard. So Varshita again is running for that, and Bryce and Rahi, who is here, and Julia. And so you have several choices there as well if you have not voted yet. Okay, so what I'm going to do first is put the link right into the chat. Yeah, okay, here we go. Boom. So go and click on that link. Take a few moments to cast your vote. And later in the meeting, we will reveal the results of our vote. But we're going to pause. We're pausing now. So you guys can all vote if you haven't voted already, or if you voted and voted for Emily for social media coordinator. Okay, go vote. And then raise your digital hand when you're done. Like, I don't know. Did you guys ever have to put your thumbs up on the desk? Invasion, did you do that as a kid?
I don't think we did it as a thumb, but I think we had to put our heads down and put your hand up.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we didn't really have thumbs yet.
Nice. And if for some reason you just are refusing to vote, you can also just say that you already voted and put your hand up as well. Objection to voting. Wow, a bunch of hands went up as soon as I said that. That's disturbing. The fun thing about this is that the results are instantaneous. So we don't have to go out into the hallway and count and all that stuff. Okay. All right, Ronnie's done. We're waiting on Benjamin and Alper, and we will announce our results.
Do you and Professor Tamajian also vote?
We do not. I guess if there was a tie, we'd be like the vice president. I guess we would vote then, and then we'd vote for opposite people, and we'd still have a tie. And then what would happen?
Oh, I guess that's true. No, I think that haven't we brought ties to runoffs or something like that before? I don't think we have ever voted.
No, yeah, we have.
Isn't that sort of like Matthew Broderick in election? You know, the advisor's not supposed to vote.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So I do have results to announce. And well, before I announce the social media thing, let me just ask you all, put your hands down. I got you. Would people like me to leave that up for a few more days for social media? So all the people who might have voted for Emily, who might want to revote but aren't here, have a chance to also revote. Certainly, that's fine. It's not like we need to make sure we have a social media officer elected, in the next 24 hours. So yeah, okay, so that would be great. So if you think that would be a good idea, like, hey, Garcia, please put it on an announcement and leave it up for another 48 hours. Could you give me a digital thumbs up? And if you're like, whatever, it doesn't matter, give a digital thumbs down. Do one of those two things now, please.
Are we doing this? Oh, here we go. Oh, they're doing it.
Yes, okay. Digital thumbs up or digital thumbs down. All right, the motion carries. We are not going to announce the winner of that election, and I think because it is possible that since Varshita is running for both positions, because the results of one might impact the results of the other, I am not going to announce either result yet, and we will sort of just give people the additional 48 hours, and then we'll put up an announcement announcing the results. Okie dokie? All right, seems fair. Seems like the fairest way to do it. All right, groovy. Okay, well, that was 24 minutes of that kind of stuff.
For ethics?
Yes, let's do some ethics. Although I do have a quick, I want to give you a couple more updates really quick, and then I'll shut up and we'll do ethics. Very soon, you are going to see, at first going to send it to the officers, but after they see it, we will put on Blackboard a schedule of a lot of our outings that we have planned. But I want to let you know that we have actually 5 campus visits tentatively scheduled. You don't have to remember what I'm about to say, but I am going to say it. But we'll post it up in Blackboard. The first one is coming up pretty soon, so you do want to be aware of this. So we're going to do campus visits on Fridays because we know not everyone can make Fridays, but we know it's the day that's the most available for people during the week. And many of these are Friday visits, with one exception, which is a trip on Tuesday during spring break, which we will take. That is okay. We'll do that. And let me just make sure I have it. Oh, look, I can do this even better. Look at me. Ready? I'll put it up on the screen. So next Thursday, there's a virtual student involvement expo. In fact, there's a virtual student involvement expo all week between 2 and noon and 1. And so we'll have some people repping honors and PTK on Thursday from noon to 1. I had emailed the officers about that already. I think a lot of you are available on Thursday, so we'll follow up with you. Friday the 11th, we're going to Loyola. And so I'm going to work with Emily to have a sign-up sheet and waiver process for you to sign up for that. We could, in theory, make it available to more than like 10 students. But right now we're sort of imagining about 10 to 12 students. So there you go. Saturday the 26th is the HCIR, which Tamajan already mentioned. And then in March, we have a bunch of campus visits. There's the Friday, 4th. And then we're going to Northeastern's honors program the week after that. UIC is the one during spring break. And I left it off of this, but it is, I want to say, April 8th, which is to Roosevelt's honors program. I don't know how I didn't copy it over here, but
Roosevelt's going to ask people have the booster as well as be vaccinated to be on campus. So
yeah, be aware of that. Thank you.
Did you, my friend Jen and I have been playing tag. Do you, as far as Loyola, she runs the honors program. Do you still want me to get her on board for then?
Yeah, but see if she can do it on the 11th, since it looks like we're already going to be going on the 11th.
Okay.
That would be great.
Okay.
Groovy. Okay, so anyways, that's some stuff. We're also in contact with the Forest Preserve people to plan some Forest Preserve outings and Habitat for Humanity, and hopefully Feed My Starving Children at some point, although as Marion found out, they're super booked up. So we'll see.
Can I also just ask, is there a day of the week that people would prefer a palooza? We could do like if we have a lot of Fridays booked, we could do like a Thursday late afternoon, or we could do Fridays that we don't have an outing. Is there a time, would people be interested in that? Sort of a scholarship and application essay writing workshop? Okay. Days of the week that are better?
How about
for me? Oh,
go ahead, Marion.
I was just gonna say probably like Tuesdays or Thursdays or Fridays. I think those are mostly good.
Okay.
I don't know if anyone else can't do that, but
All right, well, Tamasian will follow up with either a doodle poll or
Yeah.
some way of figuring out
Good day
when
to do it.
people want to do it. And but we'll try to do it relatively early so that you know, because you guys have application deadlines coming up, so that you can do it before your deadlines are due. Groovy? Okay, let's do some ethics. Safa, do you want to say anything about what Ethics Bowl is before we get into talking about some cases?
I definitely can. So the ethics bowl is basically like you can think about it like a team in the first semester of the school year, and then the second semester of the school year, it's more just a club, more of a relaxed environment. So in the ethics club, there's like the head of the ethics bowls in certain schools that lead the competitions that kind of come up with these cases. And so these cases can be anything. They're just these mini articles about different things that are going around that are ethics related. So last year there was a case on Tiger King. We've had cases on like J.K. Rowling. We've had cases on a lot of different things like mask mandates, vaccine requirements, how to enforce vaccines, how to go about mandating them. So really just those kind of topics and those kind of subjects. And the job of the ethics bowl is to basically come to a conclusion about what's the most ethically just way to go about going about the case. So, you know, how should vaccines be enforced? How should vaccines be mandated? How should masks be mandated? That kind of stuff. So in the first semester, usually we have like a 2-year school competition, and then there's a national competition. But in the spring semester, we're usually just function as a club where we just talk about the cases, we discuss them, we all formulate our own opinions, and then we try to come to one conclusion about how our team feels about the subject. So it's usually really interesting to see what kind of cases come up. I know this past semester we talked a lot about Indigenous sites and how they should be respected, and there are just a lot of interesting cases. So I am also intrigued to see what the cases for 2022 look like.
Awesome. Thanks. Yeah, I'd encourage you guys to do it. I was a coach for many, many years, and now 2 other members of the philosophy department were the coach. And often we have a lot of honors people on the ethics bowl team, and they have often been like the superstars of those ethics bowl teams. So hope you do it, and you can always talk to me or Safa to get more information about it if you want. But for today, you're not doing any sort of competing or anything like that. We're just going to talk about a couple of cases that seem interesting. This is from the national competition cases. That competition is being held at the end of this month, and virtually, but I'll be doing it from Cincinnati for some weird reason. And there's 2 cases. You might have checked them out already, but I will also put them on the screen here momentarily, and we'll just sort of talk through them together. One quirk of these cases, right, is that what happens in the competition is that you get a question from the moderator, but you don't know what that question is in advance. I'll sort of ask a moderator question once we get through this case. I'm not going to read every single word of this case, but I am going to sort of talk through it a little bit so that at least we get the basic facts so we can talk. Okay. By the way, I can't do both. Maybe I can tell. Well, I was going to ask you to all do a virtual thumbs up or whatever if you've heard of the Birds Aren't Real movement already. How many of you are familiar with Birds Aren't Real? Okay, so your thumbs do show up. Okay, we have like 2.5 thumbs that I can see. Okay. All right, well, here's the mission statement from Birds Aren't Real. The Birds Aren't Real movement exists to spread awareness that the U.S. government genocided over 12 billion birds from 1959 to 2001 and replaced these birds with surveillance drone replicas, which still watch us every day. Once a preventative cause, our initial goal was to stop the forced extinction of real birds. Unfortunately, this was unsuccessful, and the government has since replaced every living bird with a robotic replica. Now our movement's prerogative is to make everyone aware of this fact. Now, what's super interesting, I'm going to skip down here a little bit. Okay. There's some talk here. By the way, I recommend this book, Sapiens. That we are myth making. We are a myth making species. We tell tales and share myths that may or may not correspond to factual reality, but often it's our shared myths that unite us as communities, right? And there's a paragraph here about, Santa Claus, and wondering if, what's the harm in having some of these myths. So we don't really worry about a lot of these myths, but we now live in a world of conspiracy theories. So I'm going to pick it up here. However, when ignorance, fear, and gossip come together to amplify conspiracy theories across social media, they can create divisions within groups and families that splinter the online population into various tribal segments, marinating in a sauce of misinformation. Think of QAnon, for instance. Born on the internet in 2017, it purported to expose a plot by pedophile Democrats to take over the government. It cost Donald Trump in the role of America's lone heroic savior, whose garbled speeches were actually coded messages to his followers. Or think of Birds Aren't Real, which started in 17. But what's fascinating, for those of you who didn't know about Birds Aren't Real, is that it's a parody. Very recent. The founder of Birds Aren't Real came forward in the New York Times and basically said, it's basically an experiment in misinformation. We were able to construct an entirely fictional world that was reported on as fact by local media and questioned by members of the public. I have a lot of excitement for what the future of this could be as an actual force for good, he said. Yes, we have been intentionally spreading misinformation for the past 4 years, but it's with a purpose. It's about holding up a mirror to America in the internet age. You got it? So birds aren't real, isn't real, but there were many years where nobody came forward to say that it wasn't real. And there are many, many followers of the Birds Aren't Real movement. And here's the thing that I find fascinating about all things like this. I love to think about satire and comedy because of the tight wire act that is satire. And what I mean by that, how many of you guys thumbs up know Dave Chappelle? Yeah, okay. You've already grown so tired of raising your digital thumbs that you're like, whatever, it doesn't matter. He knows we know who Dave Chappelle is. So Dave Chappelle walks away from the Chappelle show, right? In part because he was like, I wasn't sure if they were in on the joke or if they were actually laughing at like they were laughing as racist or they were laughing at racism. And that's super hard. Tamasia and I are old enough to remember All in the Family. And there was a character played Archie Bunker on that who played a sexist, racist, intolerant guy. And the joke was supposed to be that he was an idiot. But many, many, many people identified with Archie Bunker. And they're like, he's my guy. And so you're like, oh, crappy, crap. Howard Stern walks that line. People are, is he laughing about sexism or is he just being a sexist, etc.? So with all that preamble, I just want to ask the opening question. Do you think, sort of like satire, do you think misinformation, to make fun of misinformation, is a good idea? Do you think, in fact, this is going to backfire? Do you think like, yay, guy? Or do you think like, it's not like good, but it's like, it's just funny. It's like not a big deal. So what do you think about Birds Aren't Real? Given that some people in the Birds Aren't Real movement probably believe birds aren't real.
Well, this is my question, because you see their protests and it's super funny because they'll be like, owls, not real. And they'll be like, sparrows, not real. And I'm like, that's super funny. But my question is, are there people in that crowd who believe that? Because haven't you ever seen a dead bird or like seen somebody run over a bird and it's not like robot parts but guts?
Yeah, and I also think that, but here's the thing, and maybe I'm a crazy guy. I think that if there are people who believe that that Hillary Clinton is running a child sex ring out of the basement of a pizzeria, then there's people who believe that birds aren't real. Like, there are people who will believe anything with enough, like, oh, we're the only ones who really understand the world and the conspiracy, that kind of thing. So let's back up a question. And I just want to ask you guys this Tamazin's question. Do you think we should worry about people believing these types of crazy conspiracy theories? Or do you think, like, come on, man, just have a little faith in humans. We're not that stupid. What do y'all think? This is the part where you talk now.
I think like we shouldn't be spreading misinformation or like incorrect information, and like there is real consequences to it of people actually thinking it's real, because like in the internet there's already this echo chamber where people can find everyone that agrees with all of their weird opinions, from like, I don't know, like pineapple on pizza to birds aren't real to like all sorts of things. So like so I think it has real consequences, and like people shouldn't do it, because I've seen I didn't know birds aren't real was a thing to show how the internet has become, but I've heard of another Facebook account where somebody posts like ridiculous things about a political party, and people believe it, and they're like, yeah, that political party sucks, and it's like, guys, this is not real. And the thing is, on the website, I think the person says this is not real, and people still like think it's real. So I've heard lots of things like this, and I don't think it helps, because yes, people are stupid. Like, it's not about being stupid enough. It's just about being so into like this thing where everything, like, they just scroll by and see everything, and it's like, yep, this one agrees with my opinion. They continue swiping. Yep, this one agrees with my opinion. So yeah, that's me.
All right. There's your opening salvo. Marion.
I definitely agree with Donna, because that is just like one example of a misinformation, and it's harmless in its nature, but there are other like misinformation that is harmful to people, where they're like, oh, take horse tranquilizer to help you against COVID, and people like believe that. And I just think that it's not something to poke fun at, but it should be a matter that is like taken lightly. And
Let me ask you a question, actually, for both of you.
okay.
So this is really interesting, because yes, there's misinformation about like the horse tranquilizers, right, for COVID treatments, but nobody's doing that as a joke, presumably, right? Those people believe it, or at least want people to believe it. And you're right, like those things can lead to real dangerous outcomes, right? So is that what matters, though? Like, maybe birds aren't real isn't like a big deal, because like the worst that's going to happen presumably is that people will carry signs or yell at other people in online forums that are like, birds aren't real. Nobody's going to like bring an AK-47 into an bird sanctuary and just be like, die machines. Yes.
Actually, I could add on to that. So
Yeah.
this is personal experience. I have some family members who genuinely believed in QAnon. And so I am definitely against like satire, like in this kind of sense. I understand it's supposed to be harmless and it's supposed to be absurd, but people are gullible, especially if it's like if it fits their bias, especially if it fits their bias, they will believe anything. So you can say like with birds aren't real, like sure, people might put up signs, but if it gets too far, people actually could do violence just to prove their point. To prove that their conspiracy is right, they will do something actually crime worthy. Many times it's supposed to be harmless, but then just give it time and it will escalate.
Okay.
Like with QAnon, for example, how that kind of escalated into some riots.
Okay. Does anyone want to make the counter argument that either it's harmless fun, or, I mean, the founder doesn't say it's harmless fun. The founder says it's a force for good, and it's good because it holds a mirror up to American society and makes us realize that we got a problem on our hands with misinformation. I'm seeing some stuff.
what about somebody like Colbert? Do you guys remember? You probably don't remember the Colbert Report, where he played a persona of a conservative pundit, but was actually it was satire. What about something like the first time my brother saw that, he was like, he didn't realize it was satire. He's like, this guy's great, and I'm like, no, like, but is that like, where's the line? Like, I mean, can we really not have political satire anymore because people won't figure out it's satire?
What do y'all think?
I think like doing social experiments on how like gullible and susceptible to different opinions people are is interesting. Like I think the fact that they ran that experiment on people is something that is like it's I don't know, like it's just interesting because it just goes to show just how much people believe anything that they read. But there's also like, I don't know if you guys have seen in the news about Spotify and the misinformation on their platform, because in that case it's misinformation, but the people spreading that information genuinely believe it and genuinely are convinced that that's true. So there's some in misinformation where it's like for satire and it's funny, and if people don't find it funny, then obviously it has its drawbacks. And then there's other misinformation where it's genuinely people who don't believe that they're wrong even though they are.
So you guys would not allow me to start a Birds Aren't Real chapter at Harper College? We'll have meetings every week. We'll go out on the quad with our signs.
I feel like it's a funny thing to read about in school, right? That like, oh, at one point in time, someone decided to run this thing and this many people actually believed it. But to like keep it going for too long, or to like really start believing in it, or to like start a fandom based off it, I think is like a little bit taking it too much if you're trying to do it for experiment's sake. Like that's
Okay.
another thing, is just how far people take it, even if they don't have any real backing to it.
Jaden, you want to, I don't want to, you don't have to like say things out loud if you don't want, but you said something interesting in the chat, Jaden, that, you know, it encourages digital literacy, perhaps, that like showing how digitally illiterate we are as a society might help encourage digital literacy. What do people think about that argument? That like a lot of times artists will do this too, right? There's a famous I can't remember the artist's last name, but he did a series where he was injecting fluorescent dye into animals. So like basically like you'd have a bunny that was like neon green. And it seems pretty messed up to do that. But then people have discussions about the ethics of that. And so you could sort of make the argument like, oh, well, this like gets us aware of the ethical treatment of animals. And so even though the act itself isn't great, like it's starting a good conversation. What do you think of arguments like that? Edward KAC, I believe is his name. Jaden said, freedom and awareness, a conscious consumer is the ideal. Is he winning anyone over? No?
I mean, I do find it interesting how they did it as a way to show people who consume stuff on the internet that, like, hey, you know, this was just an experiment, and, you know, this is what can happen if you don't, you know, cautiously think about what you're reading and where it's from. So I understand, like, that argument, how it's like a look in the mirror of us as a society. But I just don't know how great of an outcome it produces. If that makes any sense.
Mm-hmm. So would you, Marion, you sound like you're in the camp of like, it's not terribly harmful, but it's not very beneficial either.
Yeah. I mean, it is one way. I mean, not like I have any other better idea on how to, like, us as a society to make us more conscious of what we read. But I mean, it was one way, and I understand it, but, you know, probably not that great of a thing.
Is it mean I wonder, like, let's say we had a Birds Aren't Real chapter. Garcia, you're the advisor, right? And we all know it's a joke pretty much, but then we do, so like we all go out on the quad, next minute we're like, bird, not, it's owls, not real, like, whatever, woodpeckers, not real. But then like some people believe it and join along, but then basically are we just all making fun of those few people who believe it? Like, idiot, like we're just here like making fun of you and anybody who would believe that birds aren't real? Is it me?
I find that question fascinating, and I actually think that, like, let's talk about that, because I think what's really happening with satire really is that you have many audiences, right? And like one of them is the people who get that it's satire. Another is the people who don't get that it's satire. But a third is people who get that it's satire and are making fun of people who don't get that it's satire. And like, is there anything sort of like ethically troubling about essentially using misinformation to troll people who believe misinformation?
That's a
Or
nicer way of saying
yeah, or do you think like I have no sympathy for people who believe in stuff like that? What do you think? Is it just, I love the way you put it, Tamasia. Is it just mean? Is there anything mean about it, or is it just funny?
So it depends on the person who's making fun, and I mean, nobody has to shame themselves for believing something which others don't believe. So, I mean, even if they are acting mean, they should not care about that. And if they want to make fun of us, I mean, we don't mind. I mean, because we do believe in one particular thing, and if they don't, we don't mind.
Okay. All right. Anyone else want to weigh in? So
I
because, oh, go ahead. Who was that?
I was just thinking of like a minor example. I don't know if this happened to anyone else, but one time someone played a prank on me and said, if your hand is the size of your face, then you're going to have cancer. So then I did it, but then they slapped me in the face because that's what you're doing. So I guess is it wrong for me to worry about having cancer, or is it wrong for me being stupid enough to believe that? Or like, that's just one example. And there's a lot more extreme examples, but this is just something that like, it happened in elementary school, but I still can't stop thinking about it because I'm like, why was I that stupid? Like, is it wrong to worry about it? So I guess that's like, I'm just posing an example.
Emily, you just reminded me of a great shame of mine. In 8th grade, I was not a very popular kid. This other kid was like, here's what we're going to do. I'll pull down on your arm as hard as you can, and you pull up on it as hard as you can. And I did it, and I punched myself in the eye, and he thought it was like, he had great fun at that. But I mean, it wasn't, I punched myself in the eye. Like, so yeah, it's not fun when that happens. But you know, what's funny is like you go on TikTok or whatever, and there's all these prank memes where people do all sorts of stuff like that. Or so you get into that question of like, to what degree are pranks just harmless fun? Do you think that being duped into believing misinformation is worse than like being made to slap yourself in the face or punch yourself in the face? Like, is there something particularly cruel about essentially like ridiculing someone for being an idiot? That like, is there something, sort of morally repugnant about that particular way of trolling someone?
I do think it is pretty mean, especially because, like, for example, like, do you guys know The Onion?
Yeah.
So I had a relative who genuinely believed The Onion, and turns out they were reading it for a few years, and during those few years they believed everything. But when we realized that, like, that was their news, like, to them, that was their news source, we did not make fun of them, even though, like, on the inside, we're like, you idiot. But we didn't say anything like that. Instead, we just kind of tried to correct them and say, like, well, it's actually supposed to be satire. And tried to be kind of, like, as nice with it as possible, because nothing's going to come out of it if we make fun of them. If we just simply show them that it's supposed to be satire and completely satire, hopefully they'll just get over it and then move on and maybe take a lesson from it. But if we made fun of, it would have just made them feel even worse. And sometimes people have this defense mode where if you kind of like make fun of them for believing something, you'll just be more inclined to believe it's true and to prove it's true, just as like a defense kind of thing.
That's interesting. Yeah, I've seen some people talk about like satire is just inherently mean, but we don't need to remove it, but don't take it so far. I always struggle with this because I love satire. I find it to be just a great form of comedy.
I do too.
And but I do struggle with these. Like maybe it's the mean part of me is the part of me that loves satire. It's an interesting question about like what the point of satire is. I mean, I think you can make the argument that it's like, for a while, I think like the most trusted news source among fairly young people was The Daily Show.
Yeah.
And The Daily Show is not The Onion, right? It's not incorrect information, but they are satirically treating real news stories.
No,
And
The
so,
Onion does have false information, though. I think there is a gap. Like the
No,
Onion
that's what I
will run
mean.
stories like Starbucks to open Starbucks in men's room of existing Starbucks, right? Whereas
Right.
The Daily Show takes clips from the news and then provides a satirical commentary on them. I think there's
exactly, right? So, and I wonder too if some of this is just about the doing it well or doing it poorly, right? Like even a joke in a comedy club that's like there are jokes that are like, wow, that was racist, and there was like, wow, that was a clever insight into, you know what I mean? And then the question is just talent. There's this comedian out, I don't remember his name, whose entire thing is it's supposed to be obvious that like it's sarcastic, right? But it's like he's deliberately way out of line, like every joke. Like I don't know why I'm going to tell you this joke, but like the joke is like, I got a call the other day that was the greatest call of my entire life, and then 5 minutes later, I got a call that my dad had died, and I said, I know, I just heard. So like it's really out of line, but nobody would be like, yeah, that guy, like nobody would think it was real, right? So it's like in how out of line it was, it makes it better. And that's to bring it full circle. I think that's what's a little interesting about The Birds Aren't Real is that it's supposed to be so absurd that it's also like not, these people are doing dangerous things and you need to stop them because that could lead to violence in a much more scary way, right? So, all right.
I don't think that's true. I think that the theory is that the government is surveilling you potentially to control you with the birds. And when the bird poops on your car, isn't it like a tracking device? I do think that, well, I'm sorry, keep going. But I think there is
That's a good point. Okay.
There's a threat, right? You are being surveyed. They know everything you do. They know, like, it's, they're listening to your phone call, which obviously they're whatever. But like, I think it is supposed to be dangerous, the world where birds aren't real, right?
All right. So we're almost at 5. Do you guys want to do the other one real quick? We won't have time to talk about that much, but it's an interesting free speech case. If you're interested, you could say no. What do you want to do? The first person to speak gets to decide.
I'm okay.
Okay, you want to do it, or okay, you don't want to do it?
We don't have to do it.
Oh, you're the worst, Marion. No, I'm kidding.
I know.
All right. All right, we'll let it be. Maybe we'll do it later in the semester. But if you get a chance to read it, it's an interesting case if you get a chance to read it. It's about this dude, Kevin, who's like openly admits he's part of a hate group, but like hasn't done anything that violates the student code of conduct. And so the basic question is just, should Kevin get thrown out of college, even though he hasn't done anything yet? He's just super scary that Kevin is around. And just like, yeah, I'm in the hate group, and I'm Kevin. So might be fun to talk about some other time, because what's more fun than talking about hate groups? But I find that
most-
question about whether you should get rid of people like Kevin to be interesting. So we'll talk about it sometime. All right. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you go to happy-ethics.org, you can find a link to the Ethics Bowl, including to the full packet of the cases. I am the grand poobah of the ethics, so you could also just ask me for them. I have them on my computer. So, okay, we'll see you next week. We'll be in person. We will put an announcement up about the room. It is a different room than last year, but it's sort of near the room that we had in the fall. And I need to get a little bit, I think we will need a sign-up sheet, but it will be more people. So we'll have a sign-up sheet that goes out in the next few days. So if you want to come in person, you need to sign up. You do need to be cleared for Harper, just like you would for a class. So you don't need to do anything to come. We get a list of all the people who are not cleared for Harper. But with this exception, if you're not taking any classes with some in-person component, then you need to reach out if you're coming and let us know about your vaccination or testing status, right? Because you will not show up on a cleared for Harper report if you're not taking any in-person classes. So we do need to know. So I'm just using you as an example, in Anth, right? I think you're just taking online classes, so you would have to let us know if you came. I know you've been coming virtually, but and then we will look into getting a swivel for Wednesday. I don't know that we're going to be able to do that all the week, but we'll try to do it for next week. And we are in the process of firming up our speaker lineup, and that should be finalized by next week also. And then we'll post all that stuff up on the Blackboard site so you can look at all the outings. So just as a reminder, things to look up for in the near future. Get moving if you want to get in on Elmhurst or Georgetown.
What about
And you're going to see an announcement about us about signing up for the Loyola campus visit, which is an 11 a.m. start time at Loyola. So we'll probably meet at school around 9:30 on Friday. And the one thing you should know, though, is that it will mostly be an outdoor tour. So it is February. So just kind of be aware of that for temperature purposes. And it's the Lakeshore campus. It's not the downtown campus. So if you're interested, okay, we'll have a sign-up sheet in the next 48 hours. Cool. It won't be so Garcia heavy next time, promise. Bye, everybody. Emily, I'll follow up with you about some of the logistics of some of that stuff coming up.